Hey, I've got a riddle for you. If a tree falls in the forest and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? How about this one? If you perform a rolling stop and there's not a cop around to give you a ticket, is it still illegal? Let me answer that one for you. You bet it is. Some people have the misconception that this is a legal, safe maneuver. It's not. A rolling stop will not only hurt your driving record and get you a ticket, but it could cause a serious accident. Here's an example. The driver is approaching the intersection. He slows, quickly glances left, right, and left again as he rolls through the stop sign, just as this jogger is about to cross the intersection. You see, as most runners do, this jogger was running facing oncoming traffic and therefore approached the intersection from the driver's right. When the driver looked left, right, and left again, he had only one quick chance to see the runner before he began executing his turn. And in that glance, was he looking for the jogger or was he looking for cars? Chances are he was looking for cars. We often forget to look out for joggers and pedestrians. But the point is, rolling stops don't give you enough time to make sure the intersection is clear before you proceed. This scenario represents just one of the dangerous situations you'll face at intersections. Intersections represent half of all motor vehicle crashes and a significant portion of fatal crashes. They're dangerous because you have several different traffic patterns all converging into one small area, not to mention pedestrians and bicyclists and obstacles that can block your view. When you have this many people trying to squeeze through one small area in a short period of time, accidents are bound to happen. Unless you take simple precautions, like making sure the intersection is clear before you proceed. You can call it whatever you want: a rolling stop, a California stop, a California roll, a stoptional. Just don't call it a stop. If you really stop to think about it, there is no such thing as a rolling stop. If you're still rolling, you're not stopping. Unfortunately, this unsafe behavior is a common one. According to a National Highway Traffic Safety Administration poll, 30% of drivers admit to rolling through a stop. 30%! That's 1 in 3. And recently, a student conducted a study at an intersection near his school. His research revealed only 40% actually stopped at the intersection. 11% of the drivers did not stop at all, and 49% completed a rolling stop. How would you like to drive through this intersection? Or more importantly, would you let your kid walk to this school? As professionals, you'd think we'd know better. But as Republic Services has begun to experiment with onboard video event recording, the #1 trigger we see in these video events is the rolling stop. And most of these rolling stops were committed in subdivisions, where, as we've seen, the danger of hitting a bicyclist, jogger, or other pedestrian goes up. As a professional driver, you know you need to get the big picture at intersections. Coming to a complete stop for at least 2 seconds will give you enough time to survey the intersection and decide whether it's safe to proceed. A lot can happen in 2 seconds. Trust me, let's take a look. Now, what would have happened if that driver would have performed a rolling stop at the intersection at the same time as the bicyclist was coming through? Rolling stops must commonly occur at stop signs, but keep in mind you also need to come to a complete stop at traffic light controlled intersections, especially if you're turning right on red. And remember, when turning right, even on a green light or green arrow, you have to be prepared to stop for pedestrians or bicyclists crossing the road. Here's another thing you need to remember about intersections. Don't be first.
Not being first means to me is not being first through the intersection. I look to the left, right, I look to the left again, and I proceed slowly so I can make it home to my family.
Remember, a green light doesn't always mean go. A green light only means that it's your turn, not that it's safe to proceed. At a fresh green light, you know you have enough time to proceed through the intersection safely, but you still need to take a few seconds to look left, right, and left again in case someone is trying to run the red light on the cross street. You should only enter the intersection when you're sure it's safe. In fact, you should wait 3 seconds before you go. 3 seconds is enough time for things to develop and for you to observe any potential hazards. Remember, as a professional, you have to allow for the mistakes of the other drivers and unpredictable pedestrians. So far, we've talked about how important it is for you to come to a complete stop at intersections and to wait 3 seconds before you proceed into an intersection. These safe driving practices will help you get the big picture. As you're at an intersection waiting to proceed, take notice of pedestrians, distracted motorists, bicyclists, children, and anything or anyone else that may become a hazard. The other Smith system keys will also help you safely navigate intersections. For instance, you need to aim high in steering so that you identify the type of intersection. Is it controlled by a traffic light, stop sign, yield sign, or is it uncontrolled? If it's controlled by a traffic signal, is the light stale? If so, be prepared to stop. Another really important key is make sure they see you. We all agree that it's hard to miss seeing a trash truck, but we also know that it does happen. A really important part of this key is communication. Make sure you use your turn signals properly to communicate turns to pedestrians, bicyclists, and other motorists. And if they're not paying attention, use your city horn or headlights to get their attention. As the professional, you always have to be prepared to deal with the mistakes of other drivers who haven't had the training or the experience that you have. As you've heard, 1/3 of people admit to performing rolling stops. Even more people admit to speeding. And in the same poll we mentioned earlier, 40% of people admit to entering an intersection just as the light turns red. Think about that. 40% of people admit to running a red light. And of course, that's just the people who will admit to it. From the student research we mentioned earlier, we can see the rate at which people engage in these risky behaviors is probably much higher. We always tell you to expect the unexpected, but with numbers like that, you can almost guarantee that someone's going to run a red light or roll through a stop sign during your next intersection maneuver. So make sure you stop and get the big picture. And remember, stop doesn't mean yield or slow down. It means stop. Let's review. Come to a complete stop for 2 seconds at stop signs. Don't be the first. Wait 3 seconds before you proceed into an intersection. Get the big picture, aim high in steering, and make sure they see you. Use these tips to stay safe at every intersection, every time. Remember to drive professionally and stay focused. Focused on safety.